Okay, so what did I call this here? The Palace Allegory Revisited, or was the Rambam an elitist? Okay, so the shiur is coming from two places. Okay, number one is there are a couple of good allegories. Okay, and when you have a good allegory, then it has a lot of revisitation value. Okay, like I had the extreme pleasure last night of introducing a bunch of 10th graders to the allegory of the cave for the first time, and it is such a great thing to be able to expose them to that for the first time. And that allegory is the gift that keeps on giving. Like every time I go back to it, like I see new things every time I revisit it in the text. So one part of this agenda is I've been wanting to go back to the palace allegory of the Rambam in the Moreh Nevuchim for a while. Those of you who have been through it before, I think you'll benefit from seeing it a second time. And those of you who haven't heard it, then welcome to the club. Okay. The second thing is that part of this discussion I've been having with someone about the Rambam and his views of Olam Haba and his definition of heresy. There is this impression that people have of the Rambam that he was an elitist, that he was that Judaism is only for like the intellectual and he's exclusionary and that's like a bad thing. Okay. And I wanted to, and in fact, when I posted this, the title of this year on Facebook, someone said as a serious question, what's the Havamina? And so I think I have an intuition about a different argument that could be made, that he was not an elitist, and I want to see if that has success. Okay, so if you want a translation, so let me explain the translation that we're using. Ideally, I'm going to translate the whole thing. Tonight, I only was able to translate up until the line on the second page. And after the line, it's all the Pines edition. But before the line, it's me translating based on the Kafek edition. Okay, so just be aware there's two different translators. All right, let me get this up here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to read it, and then I have no idea where the discussion is going to go. Okay, so if you have questions, then ask them, because I just don't know where this is going to go. This is open-ended. Let's just see what the Palace Allegory is all about. Okay, all right. And this is from Chelik Gimel Perak Nun Aleph, but this is an excerpt. I'm not showing the whole parak here. Okay, I shall begin this discourse in this chapter with a parable that I shall compose for you. I say, a king is in his palace. Of his subjects, some are in the city, and some are outside of the city. Of those who are in the city, some have their backs turned towards the king's chamber, and their faces in another direction. And there are some whose goal is to move towards the king's chamber and are facing it, seeking to enter his chamber and to stand before him, but have not yet seen even the face of the wall of the chamber. Side note here, and I'm just saying this because I respect Kafech. I guess the Friedlander edition translates this word here that I'm saying chamber as palace or bias or something like that. And Kafech is emphatic. No, it's chatzer. And I translate it as chamber instead of courtyard because I don't think it's open air. Okay, because he talks about the wall. I mean, I don't know, but and just want to say that because he thought it was very important. Okay, of those that face the chamber, some reach it and go round about it in search of the entrance. Others have passed through the gate and walk about in the antechamber. And others have succeeded in entering into the inner part of the chamber and are in the same room with the king in the chamber. But even the latter do not immediately on entering the chamber see the king or speak to him. For after having entered the inner part of the chamber, another process is required to journey there before they can be seen, before they can be before the king and see him at a distance or close by, hear the words of the king or speak with him. Okay, so that's the mashal. Now for the nimshal. I will now explain the allegory which I have made. The people who are outside of the city are all those who have now I translated this as clearly defined belief system. Okay. He translates it in Hebrew as she'ein lo dea b'shita. Now, dea is Kafachian for what Ibn Tibbon translates as emuna. And are you aware of the Rambam's definition of emuna from the Moreh Nevuchim?
Conviction based on knowledge? Yeah,
conviction based on knowledge. It's conviction that the object that your mind apprehended exists in reality in the same way that it exists in your mind. And Kafek insists on translating as dea, because he says he seems to think that emuna is like suggests like a blind acceptance. So he likes the word dea better. I don't like the word dea because it sounds too much like knowledge, and I think that using the word belief does not have to be synonymous with faith, or conviction is a good word also. But I wasn't sure how to say it. And then Beshita, the reason why is because we'll see from his examples. Okay, he says they have no clearly defined belief system, neither one based on philosophy nor one received by tradition. Such are the Turks that wander about in the far north, the Ethiopians who live in the south, and those in our region who are like them. I consider these as irrational beings, and to my mind, they are not on the level of human beings. They are below mankind, but above monkeys, since they have the form and shape of a man and a mental faculty above that of a monkey. Yeah, okay, yes.
So just a question in general.
Yeah.
If he's going to tell us all the ideas that he's trying to say, what is the point of having an allegory?
Good question. Good question.
What was that?
He said, if the Rambam's going to decode all of this, what's the point in having the allegory?
Like, is it like a memory tool? Or...
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. Let's keep that in mind, then revisit it after we learn the allegory. Yeah, Yaakov?
Well, one can sort of be like a parish on the other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the best allegories do that, right? It's like you take something you're familiar with and you transfer properties. Yeah, but still the question is like, why is that the best way to convey this, or is it for an emotional purpose, which is another purpose of mashalim, that like in Sadikon, Yeah. All right. That's a good question. The answer is to show that he's an elitist. Yeah.
Yeah. The saying that they're not on the level of human beings.
Yeah.
Being below kind. And then the comparison to a monkey. That, on the surface, it sounds indefensible.
Okay. Yeah.
For saying that he's not an elitist.
Right. Yeah, Yaakov?
Why are they below mankind?
Because why are they below mankind?
Because they're not utilizing their human element.
Yeah, because they're not really utilizing their Elohim. By the way, I just want to make sure we know who we're talking about here. So what would be like, I'm not familiar with the Turks in the north. I don't know about you. And Ethiopians who live in the south. I mean, you got to remember Ethiopia that we have now is a country. Ethiopia back then was like a region, which included a lot more of Africa than we know. So like, what would be examples of these types of people that we're familiar with?
Like Samoan, like islander type people, maybe.
In what sense?
Like that they kind of have like.
Because just to give you a thing, you're talking to someone who grew up in Hawaii, where there are a lot of Samoans. You don't mean like Samoa. You mean like.
If you, like if you're from Samoa, maybe not Samoa at all. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure how far you're going with the Samoa thing.
I don't know specifically.
Yeah.
Samoa,
okay.
But some island places that are like kind of cut off from civilization.
Okay.
That,
Yeah.
like, have just like a lot of just sort of ritual practices, but not too many.
Right. So let me give you some examples that are not Samoa, just because Samoa is a civilized place.
Right.
So like Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
And the I think the types of islands you're thinking of, like the Sentinel Islands, or places where like undiscovered tribes, or like the Amazon, places deep in the Amazon. So we're talking here about like not like people who are outside of civilizations that don't have. I think I like the word dea beshita, because certainly these people have beliefs about stuff. They have superstitions and everything like that, but they have no like hashkafa. They have no like worldview that is articulated. It's like tribalism and spirit, shamanism, like these like very, very like grassroots of Odazara type stuff.
But let's say like modern day like Hinduism, like.
Right, I would not count that.
Right, that might be more Beshita.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about the Sabians back in the day?
That's a good question. It's a good question. Let's look at the next category and then compare and then see like where these gray cases are. Okay, because the next category is the competitor. Okay, meaning a lot of people are going to be between here or there. All right, those who are in the city but have their backs turned towards the king's chamber are those who possess philosophical belief and analysis. So that's how I translated it. The kafet is Bale Hashkafa V'iyun. Okay, so I'm translating Hashkafa as, I wished I had a term that, and I'm open to other translations, by the way, to differentiate Hashkafa from Dea. And Dea, I could say conviction, but I feel like it sounds weird in English. They don't have a clearly defined conviction system. That sounds like a incarceration program for jails, you know, like, and I didn't want to say opinion for Hashkafa, and I also didn't want to say worldview or outlook, even though like those are good translations. So I think, well, you'll see when he goes on. Okay, so they possess philosophical belief and analysis, but have latched onto improper beliefs, which they either adopted in consequence of great mistakes made in their own speculations, or because they relied on those who erred. Because of these beliefs, they recede more and more from the royal chamber the more they seem to proceed. And what I think he means by that is they think they're going towards the king, but they're really facing the opposite direction. And so they're going away from the king the more that they follow their beliefs. These are far worse than the first group, and under certain circumstances, it may become necessary to slay them and to eradicate all traces of their belief in order that others should not be misled. That he's talking, I think, about the din of Moridin V'Lamalin in Hilchos Mamrim, or he's talking about like the Shiva Amamin, and like, but yeah. Yeah, Jacob?
This might be taking a little too far, but if they're walking away from the king, are they going to leave civilization at some point?
Yeah, it's a good question. Good question. Yeah, I don't know. That might be taking it too far. Yeah, because I don't think that happens. Like it's not like they become primitive and lose their beliefs. The beliefs get strengthened. Yeah, so it's like on a. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a big city. Yeah, so the question is, let's take the Sabians, like the Avram Avinu's culture, right? So is that the first category or the second category? And let's just try to get it clear, because what the implication also about the in the mashal, I mean, this is where the mashal informs the nimshal. So the first people are not in the city, which makes it sound like they're further away from the king's palace, right? The second people are in the city, but they're moving away, unlike the first people who aren't moving. Mm-hmm. So like, it sounds like there's I don't want to call it an advantage and a disadvantage, but there's like a perk that the first one group has that the second one doesn't have. First group is not getting any worse, right? But the second group is in the city on the one hand, but they are getting worse on the other hand.
Also, why kill them? Like, why does that lead?
Right. So that you're right. That's another thing, is that we don't worry about the Turks spreading their shamanism, right, but we do worry about these people spreading their beliefs, and that's why slaying them is a thing, because it's a danger to other people. Meaning, it's not just that they're harming themselves; it's almost like they're acting as tour guides, offering to take people to the king's palace, but they're really leading them away, thinking that they're leading them there. If you want to put in your own footnote in the mashal, yeah, cool, yeah. So where exactly do we draw the line here? And I think we're gonna have to understand what it means, like Bali Hashkafa V'iyun versus She'en Lo Dea B'shita.
Yeah, it seems like the first group is just, it's sort of like they're not really like, they don't have anything worked out, and they're not acting based on any conception of how things are. They're just kind of, their emotions are just directly affecting their actions, like almost like without an intermediary. Like an animal, like a monkey. Yeah, right. Right. Even though, yeah, they do have the faculty to use their intellect, yeah, they don't use it. So their emotions just, yeah. Exactly, right. Like an animal. Yeah. But the second group, it seems like their mind is what's guiding their actions, but their mind is being guided by their emotions. So is that in the mashal, that the mind's being guided by the emotions? Oh, or in the nimshal, I mean? Well, yeah, because they're like, they have very strong conviction and they have a clear view of what they hold. It just right. is wrong. But what is there a reason why you're saying that the wrongness stems from their emotions, though? Because he says it's either adopted in consequence of great mistakes made in their own speculations, or because they relied on those who erred. Oh, maybe not. Right. I mean, it often is, but like it might not be. Like, who would be they had the wrong teacher, and like,
or like they just made a bad mistake and like they didn't correct it, but so in other words, like the first group, there is a certain like I don't know what the best word is here. Purity is too strong, but I was gonna say like uncorruptedness of their mind, in the sense that they haven't used their mind. So it's not like it's yes, they're not harboring a false worldview. They just don't have a worldview. So like just roaming around grazing here and there, like monkeys do. The second group has like you said, like latched onto a distorted way of viewing things, and that's more dangerous in a way. Like in other words, the first group also theoretically could be reached in an easier way than the second group,
Right.
Because they just don't have any like these not that this you don't have that many cases of Jews going and colonizing like far off islands, but let's say like when Christians went to these places, I mean, it happens to be that they put them in the second group, but like they did succeed in like teaching them, like some form of iyun and like hashkafa, and like brought them out of that state,
Right.
but into a worse state. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Which I guess is why like these people are like the first group still has potential sort of.
Yeah.
But then, and so like you want to get to them as quickly as possible,
Right.
I guess. But the second group, like they're the ones who they're like your competitors.
Yeah.
To get the first group.
They're the anti
Yeah.
tour guides. I don't know. Yeah.
Cool.
So regarding the question about the Sabians, it seems like it's just going to be, I just don't know what they held. If they had a hashkafa, right? Like, then they'd be in the second category, but to the extent that they were just primitive, tribal type religions, then maybe not,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, from the way that the Rambam talks about it, it sounds like they did have a belief system. So I would guess they're in the second group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The third group is small. Those who are faced towards the king's chamber, yearning to enter it, but have never yet seen it, are the mass of Torah adherents, that is, ignoramuses who are involved in the mitzvos. So this is an interesting inconsistency that I haven't yet found. Yeah?
Why is he describing it as seeing the king's chamber instead of seeing the king?
Because I think you can only see the king if you're in the chamber.
Okay, but there are further steps. Like you can't see the chamber until you're in the antechamber. Blah, blah.
Right. That's also true. Yeah. And in fact, in the Hebrew, it's even weirder. And I kind of hesitated for how to translate this. Let me just get the Hebrew here. Let me stop sharing and then share screen so I can toggle back and forth. Screen share. Just so you're aware, the Kafich More Nevuchim is available online. I don't know if what?
No.
I don't know what version Torah uses. I'm on .ac.il, which is another go-to site. Yeah, with all the footnotes, which is really nice. And it's arranged in, this is annoying and useful, it's arranged in colors and indented paragraphs so that you can like visually see the breakups. Like he has like the mushal here in blue indented. And then the nimshal, he has headings that are in purple whenever it's, it's like, it's nice. Yeah. So he says, for this group, avahaponim lachatzar hamelech, those who are faced towards the courtyard of the king, lihikanes elav, to enter it. Ella shelo ra'u klal chatzar hamelech, but they haven't seen the chatzar hamelech. So he puts it in terms of the chatzar hamelech. Don't quite know what to make of that. Yeah. So he says they're the ones who, the massive Torah adherents, ignoramuses who are involved in the mitzvahs. So what I find interesting here is in the mushal, what differentiates the second group from the third group?
The orientation.
The orientation, right? But then in the nimshal, what differentiates them?
Orientation.
Well,
it sounds like two things, right?
Where they are in a practical sense.
What do you mean?
Whether they're like doing mitzvahs or not, it seems.
Yeah. The question is, why is mitzvahs in here? Like, shouldn't the only difference be they hold false beliefs or not?
They haven't really speculated, right?
They what?
They haven't really like gotten into fuck. They're just taking it as in based on tradition.
Oh, so now this is where it gets a little more complicated. So now check out the next group. Those who have arrived at the chamber but go round about it are the scholars. And then the Chafach there says, he translated as Chachamim, but he said Lamdanim might be better. Okay, like because maybe Chachamim has too strong of a connotation of like understanding stuff, like in philosophy. Those who arrive at the chamber but go round about it are the scholars who have conviction in true beliefs by way of tradition and are involved in studying the laws of the acts of divine service, but have not gone into depth in the analysis of the foundations of the religion and have not established the truth of their conviction through investigation.
Well, right.
So, yeah, right. I mean, because and what does this say about the beliefs of the previous category? Because you assumed, Yaakov, and it was a reasonable assumption at the time, that they accept the foundations of the religion based on authority. But now it sounds like he's saying they don't have bad beliefs, but he's not ascribing correct beliefs to that group. He's just defining them by the fact that they do mitzvahs.
Well, it's like their actions are those that would stem from true belief,
right?
But they don't actually have them.
Yeah. What's their status?
I have a thought.
Yeah.
It sounds like in terms of belief, the second category and the third category are the same. But
the second category and the third category, the people who are turned away and the people who are turned towards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they both have incorrect beliefs and like that could even be like potentially damaging to them. But maybe the people who are the people who are involved in mitzvahs have something that's like the direction for them to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're
what you're saying.
If they decide to move forward, then they'll move forward in a good way because they're involved in mitzvahs.
Okay, that part I like. Right? You hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That the fact that they have the mitzvahs is what keeps them oriented towards the king's palace, because embedded in the mitzvahs, like let's take this example, right? The guy who's doing the mitzvahs here knows that God is one because he says the Kriya Shema, and like he knows that that you shouldn't worship other gods because of lo yeh lecha Elohim acharim alpana, so like there's a certain level of belief that's just implicit in the mitzvah system, but maybe if you ask him like hey man, what are the 13 Ikarim? He just won't know because that's not really in the mitzvahs or something like that, whereas like these the fourth group of the people who are at the chamber and go around it, they do hold by the Ikarim, but they just hold it based on authority.
I mean, they have a very clear understanding of what the Ikarim are saying.
Yeah, they would be like for example, they're Balei Hashkafa V'Iyun with the correct Hashkafa and Iyun, whereas the masses are not really Balei Hashkafa V'Iyun, in that sense.
Would you say they have whatever conviction?
Yeah. So that's really where I'm not clear. That would be interesting, right? Is like if they didn't have a Dea B'Shita, because the fourth group definitely has a Dea B'Shita,
right?
Based on tradition.
Right. Right. Maybe they don't, and it's just that the primitive people, like they don't have a Dea, or whatever, they don't have a Shita, but it's just that but there are like implicit, like you were saying, kind of implicit like ways of viewing the world.
Yeah.
That they do hold subconsciously.
Yeah.
It's not on the forefront of their mind. So those subconscious things for the primitive people are false. And for these people, if you commit those, they obviously.
Yeah, right. And part of me has to wonder also how, when he uses the term Am Haaretz, how Am Haaretzi is this talking about? Because I feel like also, we're in a post Rambam 13 Ikarim world. Like when if you look at the way that the Rambam talks about in the beginning of Chelek, of Hakdama to Chelek, and he says, the views that people have on the ultimate reward, and like the way he says it, right, is that there's like the people who think it's all physical, and the people who think it's all miraculous, and the people who think it's all tchias mesim moral, and the people who think it's all like Jewish power, and people who have a jumble. And he says, but no one ever talks about olam haba, and they have no concept of what it is. They don't ask what it's for. Okay, and it's hard to imagine a world without the Rambam's Ikarim being accepted. And it's not like even people understand the Ikarim, but just the average Jew on the street has some awareness of like, Ani Ma'amin, B'bias HaMashiach. Like, how often did people like say that before? I mean, I don't know. So like, it could be that like what we're picturing of when we talk about Amei Haaretz is really like lower level group 4 people, who are involved in in keeping the mitzvahs, but then they also learn, they also like are aware of certain issues in Hashkafa. But like maybe he means like by the ignorances who are involved in mitzvahs, like a really pashadiyad, Right. Which and the reason why I'm saying this is that is very similar to group 1, like you said. It's just that like group 1 has nothing except like animalistic stuff that's guiding them. Group 3 has the mitzvahs, but they both don't have like a hashkafa or a shita, a dea b'shita,
Even though the world, the true beliefs are like implicit in there.
Yeah, but maybe that's the difference though, whether they're implicit or whether they're like something. Yeah, like just because they're implicit does not necessarily mean that you call them like bali hashkafa v'iyum, right. Like the second group, Yeah.
2 questions in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they walking around the gates, and why did they say they're studying halacha?
Right, I think those are related, right?
Maybe.
Because it sounds like he's saying that. I think we have to read the one more to see what the chamber is, though, right?
Yeah.
Those who are involved in analysis of the foundations of the religion have entered the antechamber, and there's no doubt that the people there are on different levels. Okay, so that's studying the foundations. And then I guess we'll go to this last group now, up until the line. But those who have attained a proof for everything that could be proved, that's simple, who have a clear knowledge of metaphysical concepts so far, that's a typo, so far as such knowledge can be attained, and are as close to the proper views in areas where it is impossible to do anything but approach the proper views. I think that's an example of that as like Yichud Hashem. Like you can't get a positive knowledge of Yichud Hashem, but you're approaching it as far as you can approach Yichud Hashem. They are present in the king's chamber. So let's just understand the differences between those last 3. So groups 4, 5, and 6. And then maybe use that to answer the question, why are they going around the chamber? So at the chamber, I guess, is the correct set of beliefs, which they have access through tradition, but they're not in those beliefs in the sense they haven't investigated them. And the antechamber is you started investigating them, but you haven't found proofs yet. And then the chamber is you found proofs.
Mm-hmm. So then, yeah, how does halacha get you closer?
Yeah. So this is where I'm not sure, okay, because, and maybe we'll have to go back, but look at the next paragraph. Know, my son, that as long as you are engaged in studying the mathematical sciences and the art of logic, you are one of those who walk around the house searching for its gate. So this is a further elaboration on category 4, okay? As the sages, may their memory be blessed, have said, resorting to a parable, Ben Zoma is still outside. I don't know when Ben Zoma's development that is, because Ben Zoma was one of the ones who went into Pardes, right?
Well, didn't he like go crazy or something? Die?
He died, I think.
So maybe he should have stayed outside, he's saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but either way, the reason I'm pointing it out is because, like, I guess he was on the, certainly at some point he was on the caliber, because like Ron says, Arba Nichnas Pardes and Gedolei Chachamim Hayu, or Chacham, like they were great Chachamim. I don't know if this is like earlier in his development, or if this is giving the reason why he died. Like he couldn't cut it because he was still like involved in the preparatory stuff. If, however, you have understood the natural things, meaning natural science, natural philosophy, science, you have entered into the habitation and are walking in the antechambers. Okay, so that's interesting, right? because what does that have to do with what he said before? He said antechambers is when you've started investigating the foundations of the religion.
Right.
Natural sciences sounds like, I mean, unless you're going to say that since that's part of Avas Hashem, then you're like, that counts as like studying the foundations of the religion. I mean, Ram does put his sciencey stuff in Hilchos Yesod Torah, but yeah.
Is that observations?
So that's why I'm not sure. Let me see the Hebrew, because this is the Pines translation. So the Hebrew says Devarim Tivian. So I feel like if it was Ma'aseh Bereshis, then he would say Ma'aseh Bereshis. I think it's like just regular science.
As opposed to
like the Ma'aseh Bereshis that you can only do if you're on the level, and like, Ma'aseh Bereshis, yeah.
Is that what is he? I always thought the Rambam Ma'aseh Bereshis was like.
No, it's like a special area or approach to science, because halakha is governing it and such. Like the Ron says in that first drasha, right? Like it's not like the farmer who needs to learn how to like which plants get which kind of food is involved in Ma'aseh Bereshis.
Doesn't the Ron hold something else like or maybe it's not something else. Maybe that's the Ron holds also like. Whatever, something else, something like.
I mean, it sounds like he holds something else, because like the stuff he's I don't think he holds that like any science is Ma'aseh Bereshis.
Okay, is it like physics would be abstract physics, or is it? Like
I don't know. I don't know, because he doesn't have our categories either of what we call science. I mean, this is natural philosophy.
Yeah.
There was no science back then. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, if, however, you have achieved perfection in the natural things and have understood divine science, now that is in the Hebrew, elokios. Tivios vitamin es elokios. Okay, divine things. Then you've entered the habitation. Then you've entered into the ruler's palace, into the inner court, and are with him in one habitation. This is the rank of men of science. They, however, are of different grades of perfection. So let's go back now. So yeah,
the men of science, isn't that? Oh, I guess. Let
me see the Hebrew. Then, Dregas hachachamim. Science has a different connotation there. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back and see if we can answer Yaakov's question about like the fourth group. So they're going round and round. So what characterizes them is, number one, they have true beliefs by way of tradition. Number two is they're involved in studying halachos. And by the way, in the Hebrew there, it is hama'aminim es hahashkafos hamitios derech Kabbalah ve'oskim b'dinim ma'aseh ha'avodos. They're involved in the laws of the acts of service. Now I translate that as learning. And the reason why is because he already said that the previous group is oskim b'mitzvos. So he says oskim b'dinim. I assume that means like the learning of the laws.
Well, if you're adding into that category, like studying math,
and
logic, it seems like those kinds of things, like they're like training their mind.
Yes, I was thinking exactly the same thing. Yeah, is that it's all training, and they're going around and round because they're still involved in the means, not in the end.
Mm-hmm. So so doing that will help you find the entrance or whatever, and then but then it doesn't actually help you go into the door.
Right. Yeah. They're what is it? Because they're trying to find. Didn't he say earlier in the mashal that they are? Did you say they don't know where the door is?
Yeah, I think so.
In search of an entrance. Yeah. Right.
So that's right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess the going round and round is because they are continually training their minds by being involved in this stuff.
Right.
So it's like there is motion there. Motion in the mashal seems to be development or retrogression. Is that the word? Right?
Yeah.
Because the people, the Turks and the Ethiopians are not moving. The false hashkafa people are moving away. The mitzvos people are also not moving. Mm-hmm. Right, they're not really developing, in terms of their mind. And then these people are developing, but not moving. Their development is not like Ibn Ezra. They're on the perimeter of the circle. They're not moving towards the middle. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say.
Okay.
It sounds like they're not getting closer.
Yeah, they're not getting any closer, right?
I mean, they're making it easier. Like, if they did start to move toward, it would be easier for them. Or
Yeah. Well, so it doesn't only sound like that. It also sounds like he's saying it's necessary.
Okay.
Right? Like he's saying that if you're involved, and remember, he's talking to someone who is on a high level here. Was Ibn Achnin, Yosef, those are the same people, whoever he wrote the Moreh Nevuchim for, that he's saying if you're involved in math and logic, then you're still with these people who are going around,
Right.
So it's not just a matter of recognizing, I need to go in and start studying the Yesodei Torah, and that's the question, and this is a question I have here also, not that I want to know, for selfish reasons, but where are we, right? I mean, I feel like what we are doing, we are involved in the training because we're involved in being osik the Dinei ha-mitzvos, but just as readers of the Moreh Nevuchim, we are involved in trying to analyze the foundations of the religion. So is it do we have 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out and walking around? Have we gone in, but it's going to be bad because we haven't prepped? We haven't prepared to understand stuff?
Right.
Skip the next paragraph. Actually, let's just do this. It's short enough. Let's just read the rest of it just to get the full picture here. And then we'll go back. There are those who set, so this is where he's saying the different levels of perfection of the men of science, which really should be chachamim, right? There are those who set their thought to work after having attained perfection in the divine science, turn wholly toward God, may he be cherished and held sublime, renounce what is other than he, and direct all acts of their intellect towards an examination of the beings with a view to drawing from them proof with regard to him, so as to know his governance of them in whatever way is possible. So that's people who are studying all existing things to be able to arrive at a conviction in God's greatness. That's yeah, with physics and metaphysics, or Master and Master Merkava, I think. These people are among those are those who are present in the ruler's council. This is the rank of the prophets. Okay, that's high level.
So this is another level.
These are the people who are in the chamber with the king.
Okay.
And these are levels within that.
So we had that before the line.
We had that before, right? Yeah. All right. Among them, there is he who, because of his greatness, the greatness of his apprehension and his renouncing everything other than God, may he be exalted, has attained such a degree that it is said of him, and he was there with the Lord. There are people like Moshe, right? That's yeah.
When he says renouncing everything other than the Lord, does he mean not engaging in physical desires, or what does he mean?
Good question. He can't. What?
It means everything's for God.
Yep.
Right.
Brothers, sisters.
Right. It's a pretty mesmerizing Mario thing.
Oh yeah, I couldn't watch it. I was like, this is too much. This is too much. I just had to listen. Yeah. What was I gonna say? People who don't know what we're talking about, it's a sod. A sod with only 5 views. Yeah. What was I gonna say? I doubt he's talking about rejecting belief in other gods.
Right, because that seems really early.
That's elementary. Yeah. So maybe he is talking about your full devotion to just being involved in Avos Hashem. In the Mishnah Torah, at the end of Tshuva, he says, Avraham ben Rambam was very big on this, on his bodedus, right? Of seclusion, to devote yourself to just Yedias Hashem. But the Rambam says something that kind of alludes to that. Very end of Hilchos Tshuva by Avos Hashem, he says, the last paragraph in Hilchos Tshuva, Lefikach, this is after he says, I'll just read the paragraph before. Davar yadu ubar she'in avas hakadosh baruch hu niksheres b'libo shel adam ad sheyishke ba tamid karoi. Yeah, there we go. V'yazav kol sheba'olam chutz mimena. Now that's talking about Avos Hashem, right? Is that it's known and clear that the love of hakadosh baruch hu is only bound up in a person's heart. It's not bound up in a person's heart unless he is constantly immersed in it properly and abandons everything in the world other than it. Kamosha Tzivav Amar, as it says, B'chol levavacha v'chol nafshecha, ela b'dea sheyidaehu, only with the knowledge that you know him. V'al dea al pi ha'ava, and the love corresponds to the knowledge. Im ma'at ma'at, v'im harbe harbe. If a little, if a lot, a lot. Lefikach, tzarich adam liyachid atzmo, therefore a person needs to liyachid atzmo, to seclude himself, to devote himself exclusively to, like, to whatever. Lahavin ulhaskil b'chachmos, Utavunus hamodin lo askono kfi koch sheyesh ba'adam lahavin lahasik. That he needs to seclude himself to understand and comprehend the sciences and the understandings that give him knowledge of his creator according to the capacity of man. So it sounds like something like that, right? It's like abandoning all other pursuits other than focus on Yedias Hashem and Avos Hashem. I think.
That's beyond the prophets.
That's like Moshe, yeah.
Moshe.
Yeah. He says he was there with the Lord, putting questions and receiving answers, speaking and being spoken to in that holy place. Yeah.
So how is the Rambam or the Rambam himself, like, how do they say that we're supposed to do that if that's like a further step past Midway?
I mean, I guess when you get there, you'll find out. I don't think he's saying that we're supposed to, because he's not.
He's not saying. But
he's mapping out all levels, right?
I thought he's putting it in Tshuva, so like.
Oh, you're saying there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Meaning reaching the level of, in other words, what made Moshe that level is not that he did that activity. It's that he had this high degree of Yedias Hashem.
Right. Okay.
You can engage in that practice before you get to Moshe's level of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. He was there with the Lord, putting questions and receiving answers, speaking and being spoken to in that holy place. And because of his great joy in that which he apprehended, he did neither eat bread nor drink water. Yeah, when you are not subsisting on anything. Yeah, I don't know if he's alluding to something else in there that's like different than conventional understanding. Because of his great joy in that which he apprehended, he didn't eat bread or drink water. I don't know why he's tying that to the joy.
Did we have that like a few weeks ago in the like that you should get all your pleasure from contemplating God or something? And it was like in that Gemara about
Oh yeah.
that medrash.
Testosterone Simcha?
Either that or the one about what you should do to control.
You're right. Controlling the Yetzer, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. Only what I'm saying though now is like I always thought that not eating bread and drinking water means that like he wasn't eating and drinking.
Right.
This sounds like it's saying that because of his great joy, he didn't eat and drink. Now, does that mean that like he did eat and drink, but he wasn't getting any physical pleasure out of it? Does it mean that somehow the joy changes your physiology? Like, I don't know. I just don't know what, I feel like he's getting at something there, but not essential to the mashal. I don't think. For his intellect attained such strength. Oh, there we go. He goes on. For his intellect attained such strength that all the gross faculties in his body cease to function. There you go. If you have enough intellectual involvement, then your body ceases to function.
That's true.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
No, like they grew up.
Is that what happened? Okay.
It seems really bad.
Yeah. Yep.
Nothing actually.
Worked out for Moshe though. For his intellect, okay. I said it. I refer to the various kinds of sense of touch. Some prophets, okay, fine. All right, we're not going to touch that. Some prophets could only see, some of them from close by and some from afar. As a prophet says, from afar the Lord appeared to me. And that's Yirmiyahu, who's like ranks up there as close to Moshe. You know, the various degrees of prophecy have already been discussed by us. Let us now return to the subject of this chapter, which is to confirm men in the intention to set their thought to work on God alone after they have achieved knowledge of him, as we've explained. This is the worship peculiar to those who have apprehended the true realities. The more they think of him and of being with him, the more their worship increases. By the way, this is the chapter where not on the page here, where he goes into like how the perfect worship God. Like that's a whole thing.
Wait, okay. You said Yirmiyahu was
close to Moshe, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Chazal say that. Yeah. Okay, last thing for now. As for someone who thinks and frequently mentions God without knowledge, following a mere imagining or following a belief adopted because of his reliance on the authority of somebody else, he is to my mind outside the habitation and far away from it and does not in true reality mention anything about God. Now, what didn't he say though? Like, what does this say about maybe by habitation? because I was confused. I was gonna say, what about the ignoramuses who keep the mitzvos, or like even the chachamim who rely on tradition?
No, he might be saying this is that.
Yes, right. I think habitation, he must mean like the king's palace, right?
Mhm.
Not outside of the city.
What's the
Okay, yeah.
Hebrew?
The Hebrew is chutz l'chatzer. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so he's outside of the. Yeah, this is why I have to update the translation. He's outside of the courtyard. Okay, that makes sense, and does not in true reality mention anything about God. For that, okay, this is this is a harsh line now. For that thing which is in his imagination and which he mentions in his speech does not correspond to any being at all, and has merely been invented by his imagination, as we have explained in our discourse concerning the attributes. Yeah, right. So that they're worshiping a being who is just a figment of their imagination.
Right.
Yeah. This kind of worship ought only to be engaged in after intellectual conception has been achieved. Oh, but here's the thing though. But so then now my question is, well, then of what value is belief based on tradition then? Because the Ram puts a high premium on that in Chelek. That's the whole idea of the Ikarim, you know?
Right. Well, I guess
Oh, he says without knowledge though. That is the level of knowledge. So this is even further than the Chachamim who accepted based on tradition.
yeah.
Meaning both those Chachamim and these people are outside of the Chatzer. But so this might be a description of the masses, depending on who the masses are. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Does he say this guy is facing away from God?
He doesn't say how they're facing, right? He just says that
Right.
they're outside of the Chatzer.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, and you said, and this worship that he's talking about, you said he explains the Ram?
Yeah, like this worship that we just read seems to be like a wait, did we read about worship? No. You're talking about the next sentence?
Oh,
This kind of worship ought to be only engaged in after intellectual conception has been achieved.
I guess.
Yeah, that I think is talking about the worship he's about to describe later, which we're not going to read.
Okay.
Yeah. But he's negating any worship of God from these people who are not following any knowledge, that they're just accepting something.
Mhm.
Yeah. If, however, you have apprehended God and his acts in accordance with what is required by the intellect, you should afterwards engage in totally devoting yourself to him. Endeavor to, okay, he goes on this whole thing. Hold on. What?
And strengthen the bond between you and him, that is the intellect?
Yeah.
Does that mean him is the intellect?
No, the bond is the intellect.
Okay.
Between you
the
and him.
bond, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Confused.
Right. Oh, so what would be it? If, however, you have apprehended God and his acts in accordance with what is required by the intellect, you should afterwards engage in totally devoting yourself to him, endeavor to come closer to him, and strengthen the bond between you and him. That is the intellect. That's the Ibn Ezra poem. Right?
Yeah.
Thus it says, unto thee it was shown that thou mightest know that the Lord, okay, and so on. And it says, know this day and lay it to heart, and so on. And as it says, know ye that the Lord, he is God. The Torah has made it clear that this last worship to which we have drawn our attention in this chapter can only be engaged in after apprehension has been achieved. As it says, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and all your soul. That's a high level. Now we've made it clear several times that love is proportionate to apprehension. After love comes this worship to which attention has also been drawn by the sages, may their memory be blessed, who said, this is the worship in the heart. In my opinion, it consists in setting thought to work on the first intelligible and devoting oneself exclusively to this as far as is within one's own capacity. Okay, you know, I don't trust this translation. I really got to go through on my own.
Okay.
Let's go back to the question now like this. Okay, so is the Rambam an elitist?
Elitist meaning what though?
Yes, that's the question. You've just come to the chamber and are now going around it. Yeah. Because I'm going to argue that the Rambam is the opposite.
I really meant it. Like the word elitist means.
Oh. Let me just look it up in the dictionary here.
Can I ask a question also?
Yeah, just a second. Relating to or supporting the view that they say relating or supporting the view that society or system should be led by an elite. I don't think that's what people mean when they say that the Rambam is an elitist. I think they say that like it's a almost like a Korach type accusation of ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim v'lama tanasu al kahal Hashem, right? Like everyone's holy. Why are you like think you're so great because you're intellectual? You know, like I think that's like the vibe of the accusation. before you answer, tomorrow, what were you gonna say?
So I know we weren't really going so much into this, but it seemed to me like he went through the mashal and he went through the nimshal and then he like went back. And he
Yeah,
was talking. Yeah, I wasn't
that's
sure
a
how
good. That's a
that
good
fit.
question. Yeah, and it added to our knowledge of the nimshal, right?
Yeah, it just seemed like it was in a weird place.
Yeah, you're right. That's the type of thing that the Rambam wants you to notice in the Moreh Nevuchim, right? Like why he does stuff like that. Yeah, good question. I don't know how to answer. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
It's just a weird accusation. It's very obvious their level of human beings. Like,
Yes.
high level, low level.
Yeah.
Like if they deny that.
Right. So this is my argument. Okay, is like, are you an elitist because you hold that only people who go to medical school can do surgery?
Right.
Or that only people who practice a musical instrument a lot, like can play songs? No, I'd say Rambam is the opposite of an elitist because he's saying that, I mean, he's not saying this in these exact words, but the whole mashal suggests the idea that all of these levels are open to all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is not a caste system where like he holds that like certain people are just condemned to be monkeys with human bodies. Like, you know, this is, it's showing that what differentiates you, different levels of a human, is their knowledge, which is entirely consistent with what the Torah says is what makes a human human. And like we are on this journey towards the king's palace. All of us are on this journey towards the king's palace. And like, we need to know where we stand in relation to that. And yeah, obviously you can like succeed, fail, or like be spinning your wheels, you know. But like, I think he really is it is a very, I mean, let's put those, if you call a meritocracy elitism, then yes, he's an elitist. But he is not, I think when people say, maybe that's it. When people say he's an elitist, it's like they're saying he upholds like an intellectual aristocracy. Mm-hmm. Now, in result, it might resemble that in the sense that the people who have knowledge of God are going to be closer to God than others. But in potentia, in terms of the way that it's designed, it's not an aristocracy. It's not like a lineage that's passed down where like you're in a priestly family and no, it's open to any human being. And this is not even, Menachem Kellner makes the point in this point in his book. This is not even talking about Jews necessarily. I mean, he says mitzvos, but like this is open to all human beings. You know, he's not even saying like non-Jews are like excluded from this category. You know, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, even these people who call him elitist, they definitely hold like Chazal are greater than them.
Yes, right. So in what sense do they say that? Yeah, that's a good point. Right. Yeah. Okay, I mean, I definitely thought more about the mashal going through it this time than others. And we still have to answer the question, why do you need the mashal? We experience that there is a symbiotic relationship between like understanding the mashal and the nimshal. But I think it is a good question of like, what I feel, I intuitively sense it does serve an emotional purpose also, like whether it's motivational or like a way to conceive of yourself in your closeness to God. Like, you know, like even take that, right? The Torah does use the term close to God, you know, in certain things, or God was with him, or, you know, stuff like that. That can mean many things. And so putting it in like geographical terms, in terms of like a journey to the king's palace, it makes the idea of a closeness to God operational in a sense of like seeing where you're at in this journey, you know, as opposed to, let's say, like another religion that can have closeness to God being in the form of like intensity of feeling, or like you being in a physical location and being close to, you know, like this is all about your knowledge and where you're at developmentally. And having that scheme in your mind is like a very useful thing that is in line with what the Torah says human perfection is. Okay, stuff to think about.
Well, is it also like you were saying at the very beginning about that you keep coming back to the allegory of the cave?
Yeah.
So maybe it has that sort of purpose that like you keep learning this over and over again.
Right. Yeah, that's the interesting thing, right? Because the chances are the people in the king's palace are going to have a different view of the different levels, right, than the others. Yeah. All right. Good night.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that in public, the cave?